My parents stole my Switch and held it hostage because I refused to babysit their children for free. So I got the cops called on my mom for child abandonment, and I kicked my dad in the macaroons. I moved out of my parents' house at 18 because I really couldn't stand them. They were jerks, favored my younger siblings, used me as free child care, told me what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine, and all that BS. When I left, my dad told me not to let the door hit me on my way out and don't come back. I got the smallest and cheapest apartment I could find and have worked the same full-time job for 2 years. My parents didn't even hold out a month before calling me and begging me to come back home. Because without me someone else had to watch my siblings. I refused because now I finally had time for myself. My dad eventually called me and actually demanded I move back home and pay them rent instead because family is more important than my personal independence. I said back to him that my life is important too, and for once I'm getting to live for myself. So he basically said, well then see how long you can last without us. And we didn't talk for months. I don't know what he was hoping for. I managed well enough by myself. My family seemed to slowly accept that I wasn't going to come crawling back. And over time we appeared to mend things. I could tell they were having a hard time dealing with the fact things were on my terms and not theirs. Not long ago I bought myself a used Nintendo Switch, though could only afford one game for it at the moment, which is Mario Kart. I got it bundled with the console for a good deal. My mom came by on a Saturday and asked me to watch my 2 youngest siblings for a while. She basically pushed them in the door at me and ran, and I was stuck with these 2 rowdy kids all day in my tiny apartment. My mom didn't come back until after 9 p.m. And that was because I called her and made her come get the kids, and she really didn't. Like that I cut her fun time short. I said that unless she wanted to pay me, I wasn't going to be watching my siblings all day anymore. And next time I won't even open the door, and I'll call the cops if she just leaves them outside. The next morning I realized I couldn't find my Switch anywhere, so I called my parents, and like I thought, one of my siblings took it. I said I was coming over to get it right away, but my mom said it could wait because my youngest sibling was gaming on it, and she didn't have the heart to take it away. I said it was taken without my permission, and I will be taking it back. I got on my bike and rode there ASAP, and when I arrived my sibling was crying because the Switch's battery had gone dead and they didn't have the charger. I told them to give it back, but my dad took it and said I could have it back when I agreed to start helping out with my siblings more. I told him if that's how he wanted to play this, I'd get police involved. And no, I was not bluffing. He dug his heels in and insisted I wouldn't do it until I pulled my phone out and started dialing. My mom yelled wait, and hurriedly took my Switch back from my dad. He called her a traitor and demanded she return it to him instead of me, but she said it wasn't worth having police called on them. Before leaving I told them if this ever happens again, I'd be calling the police first, and if they want a Switch for my siblings so bad, they can get their own. My dad yelled that I couldn't disrespect him like that, and I countered that even though I'm an adult, he's not bothered to ever show an ounce of respect to me, and I'd had enough. Then I walked out with him yelling at me to come back and face him. Right now it's back to silence from them. My mom texted me once begging me to still watch my siblings. I said that if she wanted me to babysit so badly, she could pay me, and I'd only take the money in advance because I'm not doing it for free anymore, especially after they stole from me and tried to keep me from returning my property. They don't own me. I'm an adult with my own place and my own life, and they can either get used to it or get lost. Update. Well, I waited and waited, but there was no contact between us for around 3 months since the last time my mom called and I refused to watch my siblings without being paid. Then it finally hit. My parents called me all of a sudden wanting me to babysit, and they acted like the prior incident with the Switch never happened. I told them I was not going to babysit unless they paid me, and it'd have to be a day that I had off work. My dad got furious as usual and said that I needed to man up and help out, so I pointed out that he needs to stop acting like he has control over me. He started yelling violently into the phone and my mom took it away from him. I said I could only babysit on Sundays because that's my only day off. I would only do it if they paid me $30 and included pre-packed lunches, dinners, and snacks for my siblings because I wasn't going to waste my money providing food for them. That's not my job. And if they took anything from me, like when my Switch was stolen last time, I would get the police involved to get it back. I saved the receipt when I bought it, and documented the serial number so I'd have no problem proving to the police it's mine. My mom's beach mode kicked in and she started swearing like a sailor that had just broken a tooth. I let her have her rant while pretty much ignoring the phone until she realized I wasn't responding and started demanding I say something. So I said that she and dad have my conditions. Sundays only, $30 and prepackaged food, or they could F off. There was a moment of silence on the line, and then my mom went off on me again and said that my younger siblings who are 14 and 15 had to step up to help because I wasn't helping anymore, and they needed a break. I laughed and said, oh, like how you guys gave me breaks? Like never. My mom tried to say that was different, and it was because I was the oldest child. I noted that it wasn't different. They parentified me and I lost out on a bunch of my childhood because of it, and now I'm living my own life without them. And they are hypocrites to act like I should step up again when I'm no longer living there and they have 2 teenagers in the house that can do everything I used to do. My mom shifted into victim mode and started saying that my teenage siblings were rebelling and not listening to them. I told them bitching and moaning wasn't my problem. They need to figure out alternative child care. I'm too busy with having a life. Then I hung up. It was right back to radio silent for about a while. Then one Saturday morning a few weeks later I was getting ready for work when there was a sudden loud and fast knock at my door. The kind where you know they're doing it with both hands. My mom's done that for years as her knocking trademark to let me know she was there, and she knows I know the sound of it very well. And the knocking was followed by what sounded like someone loudly running down the corridor. I listened through the door and could hear my 2 youngest siblings bickering with each other and tapping on the door themselves. My mother just left them outside the door and ran. I just opened my window, climbed out, and simply walked away. My apartment is on the ground level all the way to the end of the building, and I can climb out the window I have there easily by just pulling the screen out. I called one of my neighbors who lives a few doors down. She's a sweet old lady who likes kids, and I gave her the rundown. She's known about my situation with my narcissistic parents for a while now and called the police for me to tell them that there were 2 kids left abandoned in the hall after the mother pounded on a door and took off. Suffice it to say, the police came and picked up my siblings. My parents called me later and were furious. I pretended to be clueless and asked what they were so mad about. My mom fully admitted she left my 2 youngest siblings at my door for me to babysit and ran. I wondered if she just left them there without anyone answering the door, because I was already out since I had to work Saturdays. My mom just got really quiet for a few seconds, then yelled how the hell was I supposed to know that. I countered that this was all her fault, and she literally abandoned her kids at my door in the hopes that maybe I was home, on a day I'd already told her several times I worked. Like she was trying to force me to skip a shift by trying to give me no choice but to watch them. She started making excuses, but I told her what she did was inexcusable and immature. She ended up crying, and I just let that go on for a while before asking if she was done yet. She went back into beach mode and yelled at me the police were charging her with child abandonment. I said that wasn't really my fault since she left the kids in the hall. Then said I would have called the police on her as well if I was home, and she refused to come back for the kids. My mom somehow ended up getting off with just a slap on the wrist and a fine because she somehow convinced the cops that she honestly thought I was home and would babysit, or so my next sibling said when he texted me. After that, things boiled over on Thanksgiving. My parents invited me over, and I was fully expecting it to be some kind of trap. And it was. At dinner, my dad just sat at the table smoking a cigarette and acting like he was in charge. He had my mom sit me down and then said enough was enough, and he was ending this farce. He told me that I needed to move my butt back home and pay rent to help with their mortgage and bills, as well as help parent my siblings because they don't have any time to themselves anymore, and the fine my mom had to pay hit their finances hard. I just said no, plain and simple, and I kept that up no matter how much he tried to order me. He ended up getting so angry that he actually attacked me, and he's not a small man. I thankfully am not either, as I've been hitting the gym for months, and learned some amateur fighting. I had my steel-toed boots on as well, so I gave him a swift kick in the balls when he came at me, then punched him hard enough in the face that he was down on the floor in an instant. He landed with quite a thud and even threw up because of the pain while clutching his goodie bag. Then I told my parents that I had my phone recording in my pocket the whole time, and I could easily prove he attacked me first. My dad told me to get out of his house and never come back, and I obliged, but not before taking a turkey leg off the platter and riding home with it to eat. Since then only my siblings have called or texted me. They said that I'd walked out like a boss, and there are now running jokes in the house about dad's poor balls.